statement about an incident in the Channel this morning. This is an ongoing search and rescue incident, but I can confirm that at the time of making this statement, tragically, there have been 4 fatalities. It would be inappropriate, Mr. Speaker, for me to go into further detail at this time. There is a multi-agency response to this terrible tragedy. His Majesty's Coast Guard, the RNLI, South East Coast Ambulance, the Ministry of Defence, Police and Border Force, together with French vessels and commercial fishing vessels and contractors at Western Jetfall, have responded. This morning, Mr. Speaker, I have spoken to Border Force officials based at Dover, Manston, and involved in the search and rescue effort. I've also spoken to my French counterpart, the Interior Minister, Gérald Darmanin. A full statement will be provided to the House in due course, once the facts have been fully established and the necessary investigative work completed. I know that everyone in this House and across the country will join me in expressing our profound sadness and deepest sympathies for everyone affected by this terrible event. I know that they will also join me in offering our profound gratitude to those working on the search and rescue operation. Yeah. That very much includes those who are responding to the incident. Commander Dan O'Mahony and his team are working tirelessly with military colleagues and other partners, day in and day out, to try to prevent this type of tragedy. They are undertaking immensely difficult work, and we should all be extremely grateful to them. Mr. Speaker, these are the days that we dread. Crossing the Channel in unseaworthy vessels is a lethally dangerous endeavour. It is for this reason, above all, that we are working so hard to destroy the business model of the people smugglers, evil, organised criminals who treat human beings as cargo. As the Prime Minister told the House only yesterday, it is not cruel or unkind to want to break the stranglehold of the criminal gangs who trade in human misery and who exploit our system and our laws. He was right. This morning's tragedy, like the loss of 27 people on 1 November day last year, is the most sobering reminder possible of why we have to end these crossings. We recently agreed the largest ever small boats deal with France, with more boots on the ground patrolling their beaches, UK and French officers working together in both countries. The Calais group of Northern European nations works to disrupt trafficking and smuggling all along the migration route and has set an ambition for a UK-EU-wide agreement on migration. And since 2015, we have welcomed 450,000 people here from all across the world via safe and legal routes, making these dangerous crossings totally unnecessary. But it was evident that we had to go much further, which is why the Prime Minister announced a new package yesterday. It includes a new, permanent, unified, small boats operational command, bringing together the military, civilian capabilities, and the National Crime Agency. It will coordinate intelligence, interception, processing, and enforcement using advanced technology, including drones. We are adding more than 700 new staff and doubling the funding for the NCA to tackle organised immigration crime in Europe. The Prime Minister announced yesterday a new agreement with Albania. For the first time, Border Force officers will be embedded in Tirana Airport, helping to disrupt organised crime groups and people smugglers, risking people's lives unnecessarily. And early next year, we will introduce new legislation to make it unambiguously clear that if someone comes to the UK illegally, they should not be able to remain here. Instead, they can expect to be detained and swiftly returned either to their home country or to a safe country where their claim for asylum will be considered. Late or spurious claims and appeals will not be possible, and once someone has been removed, they will have no right to re-entry, settlement, or citizenship. This will act as a deterrent, and it will save lives. As we grip illegal migration, we will create more safe and legal routes, working with the UNHCR to identify those most in need and introducing an annual quota set by Parliament. We will work closely with local authorities to determine capacity. Mr. Speaker, it isn't true that our capacity is limitless. We are already spending millions on hotels every day. People do not need to seek asylum if they are already in a safe country. It is vital, literally vital, that we end the illegal crossings in the Channel, and I commend the statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for advance sight of her statement. This is truly tragic, deeply distressing news, and all of our thoughts and prayers will be with those who have lost their lives and their families and friends who have lost loved ones in the icy waters of the Channel. We will be thinking too of those who will be receiving support and medical assistance, who may have been rescued as well. And all of us will give our thanks to the brave responders and rescuers in the Border Force, in the RNLI, in the Coast Guard, in the MOD, in our emergency services and in the French authorities, responding not just today to this awful, awful tragedy, but also who do such heroic work every single day. It is only because of their brave work that more lives have not been lost. It was barely more than a year ago that 27 lives were lost when a boat went down. And all of us have warned, all of us have feared that it was just a matter of time before more lives were lost. It is, of course, why the UK and France both need to act to stop these dangerous boat crossings. The brutal truth as well is that criminal gangs have made money from those lives that were lost today. They have profited as people have drowned. Day after day, week after week, criminal gangs are putting lives at risk for money. And the other brutal truth is that far from stopping those criminal gangs, those gangs have grown and grown. And the UK and French governments and authorities have failed to stop the criminal and smuggler and trafficking gangs proliferating around the Channel. Those gangs have created a multi-million-pound criminal industry with lives at stake, and the action against those gangs has been too weak. There have been barely any prosecutions or convictions and barely any inroads into the smuggler gangs. Just 3 convictions for people smuggling a month at a time when tens of thousands of lives are being put at risk each month. It is why we have long called for a long time for a major boost to the National Crime Agency, because we do need major action. And yesterday, the Prime Minister announced an increase for the National Crime Agency. I am glad that he has made some progress on this, but can the Home Secretary clarify what does it mean in practice? How much additional funding will there be in practice for the National Crime Agency? How much, and specifically for the action on the smuggler gangs? How many additional full-time staff will there be? And what is the sense of scale on this? Because I fear still that this is too low and this is too little, given the scale of the problem we face. Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced a small boat operational command. Again, how different is that to the previous clandestine Channel Threat Command, led by Commander Dan Omani, which has been in operation for some time? Will it still be led by Commander Dan Omani or by somebody else? Will it be the Home Office or the MOD in charge? Is it correct that the Navy has been told they will be standing down on the 31st of January? Can she update us too on the French patrols and surveillance? Has the 40% promised increase in patrols started yet, and when will it? Was this boat picked up as a result of increased surveillance. If it wasn't, what was the reason for that? The Home Secretary has also referred to safe legal routes. She was pressed at the Select Committee on a lack of safe legal routes for children trying to unite with family in the UK. When will she be taking action to address that, to prevent children seeking to rejoin family in the UK, making desperate journeys? And she referred to the Prime Minister's statement yesterday. Can she clarify? We have also called for the fast track for safe countries and for the backlog to be cleared. The Prime Minister said he had set a personal target of 117,000 cases to be cleared by the end of next year. Number 10 later said that target was 92,000. Could she again confirm which of those it is? The responsibility for the lives that have been lost in the Channel lies with the criminal gangs. They need to be caught, they need to be prosecuted, they need to be jailed for the loss of life in the cold sea, and we need comprehensive action. We gathered in this House just over a year ago to lament the loss of 27 lives. None of us want to do so again. None of us want to be here again. That's where we need action before more lives are lost in peril on the sea.
Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, today is a day to demonstrate our sympathy for the victims and the families of this deadly and tragic incident. It is a day to express gratitude to our hard-working emergency services, border force and search and rescue and MOD colleagues who at this moment are conducting an operation in the Channel in very difficult and challenging circumstances. The Honourable Laney mentions a few points, and I want to respond to some of those in detail. The Small Boats Operational Command is going to be a new operational command that the Prime Minister announced yesterday as part of our plan to go further on the action that we will take to stop the boats crossing the Channel. This means that we are setting up a new HQ, the Small Boats Operation Command in Border Force, to bring our channel and processing operation under a single Home Office command with military support for specialist planning and operational advice. As part of this, we will bring in new air and maritime capabilities, including new drones, land-based radar, fixed-wing aircraft, and more. And we will be more than doubling our current permanent staffing levels, with 100 new staff at HQ and over 600 new operational staff based at Dover. That's a sign that we are strengthening our resolve, we are strengthening our will, and we are strengthening our efforts to do whatever it takes, as the Prime Minister has pledged, to stop the boats crossing the Channel. It will improve our intelligence and information sharing with the French. It will improve and build on the cooperation that we have with partners in France. The deal that we signed last month with colleagues in France is a big step forward in our cross-channel cooperation, for we share a common challenge. And that new arrangement will see more dangerous and unnecessary crossings being prevented. Last year, our joint efforts prevented over 23,000 unnecessary journeys. To date, this year, that number is 31,000. That in itself is insufficient, but it's a step in the right direction, and the agreement that we have struck afresh with the French will go further to enhance our joint working. She mentions safe and legal routes. Since 2015, we have made it possible for 450,000 people to come here via safe and legal routes. That's a record of which I am immensely proud. Those are people who have come from countries like Ukraine, from Syria, from Afghanistan. They're people who have come from all over the world, directly from places of danger, including via the UK resettlement scheme, where people have been selected by the UN refugee agencies from countries including Ethiopia, Iraq, Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. And so we will extend safe and legal routes once we have dealt with the appalling people smuggling gangs risking people's lives, as we have seen this morning. And lastly, she talks about our track record on this issue. This government won't stop until we have seen progress, until people understand that taking this lethal journey is not safe, it is not lawful, and it will not lead them to a better life in the United Kingdom. Our capacity, that there are millions of people around the world who are fleeing conflict and poverty and who seek a better life elsewhere. Our capacity in this country is not infinite. We cannot accept everybody who wishes to come to this country. That is a reality of the world, and it's a reality of life. The other party would suggest otherwise. I hope that she will join us in our strengthened resolve to stop this problem by supporting our measures and supporting our legislation next year.
Tim Lawton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I echo the sympathies of the Home Secretary and the tributes to the rescue services. And frankly, it is a miracle that no lives have been lost in British territorial waters before now. And that's a tribute to the professionalism of Border Force, of the RNLI and Coast Guard and others. And being no doubt, the blood is on the hands of the criminal gangs responsible for this tragedy. Of course, the best thing would be for those boats not to leave the shore in the first place. So can she update the House about any progress she may be having in discussions with her French counterparts, which will persuade them either to intercept those boats if they get into the water and bring the passengers back to French land from where they started, or when they do intercept people on the beaches about to get into the boats, that they are arrested and detained rather than set free and allowed to try again the following night. That is the only thing that is really going to stop this immediately, as we need it to happen.
Well, my right honourable friend is right, and I'm very proud of the new agreement that we have struck with our French colleagues in this regard, and already there has been progress. In the last few weeks, there have been initial deployments of embedded officers under the deal, with the first full deployments before Christmas. The joint headquarters function is up and running, with regular operational planning meetings between the UK and French law enforcement and intelligence agencies, and we are working together with French partners to achieve the Calais Group agreements that we struck last week to deepen our intelligence cooperation with near neighbours.